You think you have a choice. You wake up every morning, inside an economy that was engineered to feel like freedom. You reach for your iPhone, one of the most recognizable consumer products in human history. You open a delivery app and order Starbucks coffee. You pull on a pair of Nike sneakers, climb into a Ford or a Toyota, and merge onto a highway lined with billboards for brands that feel distinctly, reassuringly American. To you, the consumer, the voter, the taxpayer, these are competing brands. These are rival corporations, locked in a vibrant, open, free market battle for your attention and your dollar. That is what the system was designed to feel like. But what if I told you that feeling is a carefully constructed, multi-trillion-dollar illusion? What if I told you that the life-saving medication you depend on, the apartment you rent, the processed foods stacked in your pantry, the streaming service queued on your television, and yes, the very news channel you are watching right now, are all owned at the deepest structural level by the exact same 2 or 3 giants, not similar companies, not companies with overlapping investors, the same entities, the same boardroom voices, the same algorithmic decision-making framework. Welcome to the era of the invisible monopoly. Welcome to the world of BlackRock and Vanguard. These are 2 names that 90% of the global population has never heard of, yet together they control over 90% of the world's liquid wealth. They hold more capital in their digital vaults than the combined GDP of almost every nation on Earth. Combined, let that number anchor itself in your mind. Because every fact we are about to present, every data point, every corporate connection, every algorithmic revelation flows directly from that single, staggering reality. Today, inside the Wealth Vault, we pulled back the heavy curtain on the hidden empire, the invisible power architecture that actually dictates the flow of human civilization in 2026. This is not a conspiracy theory discovered in the dark corners of the internet. This is not speculation. This is the cold, hard, mathematically documented reality of the modern global financial system, and is hiding in plain sight in the SEC filings, the shareholder registries, and the quarterly earnings calls that almost nobody reads. At WealthVault, we don't just follow the money, we follow the power. The vault is open. To understand the full scale of this power, we must first sit with the numbers, not skim them, not round them down into something manageable. We must sit with the actual, documented, publicly filed numbers, because the numbers themselves are the story. Traditional banking legends, names like JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, institutions that for generations defined the center of gravity of global capital, now look like regional boutique operations when placed next to these 2 titans. JP Morgan, the largest bank in the United States by total assets, manages approximately $3.9 trillion. Goldman Sachs manages approximately $2.8 trillion. BlackRock, founded by Larry Fink in 1988 from a single 8-person office in a 1-bedroom Manhattan apartment, has evolved into a financial leviathan managing nearly $10 trillion in assets under management. Vanguard, the undisputed pioneer and king of passive investing and index funds, founded by the legendary John Bogle in 1975, controls roughly $9 trillion. Let that sink in. Combined, that is $19 trillion. Not 19 billion. 19 trillion. Written out numerically, 19 followed by 12 zeros. If BlackRock and Vanguard were recognized as a sovereign nation, that combined asset base would make them the 3rd largest economy on the planet, surpassing the GDP of Japan, surpassing Germany, surpassing India, and trailing only the United States and China. 2 private firms, 3rd largest economy on Earth, 0 elected officials, 0 public accountability, but the raw asset total is only the beginning of the story. Because the truly consequential mechanism, the one that converts financial scale into societal control, is not the amount of money they manage. It is where and how they deploy it. Over the last 3 decades, while the American public was occupied with election cycles, celebrity culture, and the endless scroll of social media content, these firms quietly and systematically accumulated massive, controlling institutional stakes in every major corporation listed on the S&P 500. Not minor positions, not passive footnote holdings. Top 5 shareholder positions, the kind that come with board influence, proxy voting power, and the ability to shape executive compensation, strategic direction, and long-term corporate philosophy. Today, they hold most influential shareholder seats in virtually every single major boardroom on Earth. Look at Apple, the most valuable publicly traded company in American history. BlackRock is a top 3 institutional shareholder. Vanguard holds a comparable position. Look at Microsoft, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, Amazon, Meta. Look at Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. Look at ExxonMobil and Chevron. Look at Boeing and Lockheed Martin, the defense contractors that build the aircraft and weapons systems used by the United States military. Pull up the SEC 13F filings for any of these corporations, and you will find the same 2 institutional names occupying the same positions at the very top of the ownership list. This means that true market competition, the foundational premise of the free market economy that American identity is built upon, is, at the structural level, officially dead. When the same entity holds a controlling institutional stake in both Pepsi and Coca-Cola simultaneously, who are those companies competing against? When the same portfolio owns both Ford and General Motors, both CVS and Walgreens, both Comcast and AT&T, what does competition actually mean? It means nothing, because they are not competitors. They are different departments of the same invisible global portfolio. And in 2026, this level of corporate consolidation, this degree of cross-ownership concentration, has reached a structural point of no return. The free market, as it was conceptualized by Adam Smith, taught in economics classrooms and celebrated in political speeches, that market no longer describes the system we actually live inside. What we live inside now has a different name, and that name is managed by an intelligence that most people have never heard of. BlackRock is far more than just an investment firm managing a $10 trillion portfolio. Beneath the corporate branding, beneath the polished quarterly reports and the congressional testimony appearances of Larry Fink, BlackRock possesses what can only be accurately described as the world's most powerful financial digital weapon. Its name is Aladdin. Aladdin stands for Asset, Liability, and Debt and Derivative Investment Network. It is the most sophisticated and comprehensive artificial intelligence risk management and market prediction system ever conceived, designed, and deployed in the history of global finance. It was not built in a year. It has been continuously developed, refined, and expanded since the early 1990s, trained on decades of market cycles, economic collapses, currency crises, and geopolitical shocks. It is the ghost in the machine of the entire global economy. Every single second, not every hour, not every minute, every second, Aladdin simultaneously analyzes millions of active trades across every major global exchange. It monitors every significant global news publication and wire service in real time, in multiple languages. Running natural language processing across hundreds of thousands of articles daily to extract market-relevant signals. It processes complex geopolitical developments, central bank communications, earnings reports, satellite imagery of shipping traffic, and commodity flow data to model and predict the future behavior of financial markets before those movements have even begun to register in publicly visible price action. And critically, it is not only BlackRock that uses it. Aladdin's platform is licensed to a client roster that reads like a who's who of global institutional power. Major central banks, the largest insurance conglomerates in the United States and Europe, sovereign wealth funds, pension funds managing the retirement security of tens of millions of ordinary working people. And yes, the United States Department of the Treasury has utilized Aladdin's analytical framework for critical financial decision-making. As of 2026, over $21 trillion of the world's total investable wealth is managed, monitored, or directly influenced by this one single artificial intelligence system. To put that in concrete terms, Aladdin knows when a specific regional housing market is going to experience a price correction before the first mortgage default is filed. It identifies the early warning signals of an oil price spike before the first barrel is extracted from the ground. It models sovereign debt default probability curves with greater accuracy than the national treasury departments of the countries in question. and it does so weeks or months before the Prime Minister receives the briefing. This predictive advantage, this systematic future vision capability, is the primary reason why Larry Fink is, by any objective measure of real-world influence, arguably the most consequential unelected individual operating on the global stage today. He did not win a single vote. He was not confirmed by any Senate. He answers to no electorate. And yet his phone calls are returned by heads of state, finance ministers, and central bank governors faster than those of almost any elected official on earth. In the corridors of genuine power, in the private meeting rooms of Davos, in the bilateral conversations at the G20, in the quiet pre-meeting calls between Treasury officials and their institutional advisors, they do not ask what the president thinks. They ask what Aladdin says. And here is the philosophical question that keeps serious economists, legal scholars, and political theorists awake at night in 2026. If a single privately owned algorithm manages or directly influences the majority of the world's investable capital, if that one system is the analytical foundation upon which the world's most powerful financial institutions make their most consequential decisions, does the free market actually exist? Or are we all living inside a pre-calculated, continuously optimized simulation, engineered to maximize the returns of the top 1%, while creating just enough apparent volatility and competitive noise to maintain the comfortable illusion of a free and open market? The answer to that question becomes significantly clearer when you trace how this algorithmic power has moved from the digital world of financial instruments directly into your physical front yard. But how does this abstract trillion-dollar algorithmic power translate into the material reality of your actual daily life? How does a shareholder registry filed with the SEC affect the neighborhood you live in, the news you consume, and the financial future available to your children? Have you noticed, over the past several years, that the generational promise of home ownership, the central pillar of the American dream for the post-World War II middle class, is becoming structurally inaccessible for a growing majority of American families? That the mathematics of purchasing a first home, even a modest two-bedroom home in a mid-tier American city, simply do not work anymore on a median household income? In 2024, the national median home price in the United States exceeded $420,000. First-time homebuyers faced average mortgage rates above 6%, in many periods significantly higher. The ratio of median home price to median household income reached its highest level since records began. That is not an accident. That is not purely the result of supply constraints or demographic pressure. That is, in significant part, the direct consequence of a deliberate institutional investment strategy. Because these hidden giants and the massive institutional funds whose capital they manage and influence have pivoted their deployment strategy with extraordinary aggression into a single asset class. They are not just buying stocks anymore. They are buying your neighborhood. Institutional investment vehicles backed by and aligned with this massive concentration of capital purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family residential homes across the United States in the period between 2020 and 2025. They entered local housing markets in Phoenix, Atlanta, Charlotte, Tampa, and dozens of other mid-sized American cities with all-cash purchase offers, offers that individual families applying for a conventional mortgage cannot structurally compete with. An all-cash institutional offer closes in days. A family with a mortgage pre-approval takes 30 to 60. The house is gone before the appraisal is scheduled. Their publicly stated long-term goal, visible in investor presentations and portfolio strategy documents, is the systematic creation of what analysts have begun to describe as a nation of renters. A world, a carefully constructed, financially optimized world, where the concept of building personal wealth through home ownership, the single most powerful wealth-building mechanism available to the American middle class for 3 generations, is replaced by a permanent monthly subscription. A subscription paid to a multi-trillion-dollar institutional fund for the right to occupy a house that you will never own, that your children will never inherit. You will own nothing, and they will profit from everything. And if any part of you is looking toward the mainstream media to expose, investigate, or even coherently explain this dynamic, you need to understand one more layer of this architecture before you do. From the Walt Disney Company and Warner Brothers Discovery to the largest television news conglomerates operating in the United States, from the parent companies of the most watched cable news networks to the studios producing the most streamed content on the planet, the top institutional shareholders are, without exception, and across every major media entity, BlackRock and Vanguard. They control the money, they own the land, and they manage the narrative. This is the ultimate control loop. The most complete, most efficient, and most invisible system of societal management ever constructed in human history. When you control the financial infrastructure that companies depend on for capital access, you shape their strategic decisions. When you control the housing market, you determine the financial stress level and geographic mobility of the workforce. When you control the media companies that produce and distribute information, you determine the frame through which the population understands all of the above. You do not need a military to maintain control of a modern, developed population. You do not need secret police or overt authoritarian machinery. You need only to own the bank, the landlord, and the television set simultaneously. When those three are unified under the same institutional ownership umbrella, the control loop closes. And in 2026, that loop is closed. This is the documented blueprint for the modern global economy, a world of total vertical integration, financial, physical, and informational. And yet, the story does not end here, because the most important question, the one that actually affects the trajectory of your financial life and the lives of your children, is not simply how this system works, is whether anything can be done about it. The world has changed, not gradually, not incrementally, fundamentally, structurally, and, for those paying attention, irreversibly, at least within the architecture of the current system. Power in 2026 no longer resides in the places where power used to be visible. It does not reside solely in elected legislatures or in the executive offices of the White House. It does not reside in the famous faces of public billionaires, not in the social media presence of Elon Musk, not in the brand of Jeff Bezos, not in philanthropy announcements of tech founders. The real power, the power that determines interest rates on the credit card in your wallet, the rental price of the apartment your adult child is trying to afford, the valuation of the retirement account you have spent 30 years building, and the investment decisions of the corporation that signs your paycheck, that power resides in silent computer algorithms and multi-trillion-dollar portfolios that operate entirely in the shadows of the global financial system. Legally, transparently filed with regulatory bodies, and almost entirely invisible to the populations they affect most directly. BlackRock and Vanguard are not villains in a movie. They are not shadowy cabals meeting in secret. They are the invisible architects of your material reality, operating in plain sight within the legal framework of the modern financial system, maximizing returns for institutional clients. Their influence over the price of the groceries in your shopping cart is not theoretical. Their stake in the pharmaceutical company that sets the price of your prescription is documented in a publicly available SEC filing. Their ownership position in the media company delivering tonight's news broadcast is a verifiable fact. Their role in the institutional purchasing strategy that priced your family out of a first home is a matter of congressional record. The question is no longer how this system works. We have answered that. The question is this: can we ever truly step outside of it? Is it possible to rebuild the structural conditions for the American dream, for generational wealth through home ownership, for genuine competition, for independent media, in an era of algorithmic monopolies and $19 trillion institutional concentration? The historical precedent for breaking institutional monopolies exists. The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 was deployed to dismantle Standard Oil. The Bell system, the telecommunications monopoly, was broken into pieces by regulatory action in 1982. The tools exist in the legal architecture of the American Republic. Whether the political will exists to deploy them against entities that are the largest institutional shareholders in the media covering those debates is a more complex question. Because here is the structural trap that defines 2026. The entities with the most to gain from regulatory inaction also shape the information environment. The loop is closed from both directions. At WealthVault, our position is not that this system is permanent. No system built by human beings is permanent. The Roman Empire appeared permanent from the inside. The Soviet financial architecture appeared immovable until it moved. Every monopoly in the history of economic organization has ultimately encountered the limits of its own structural contradictions. But surviving the interim, protecting your financial trajectory, building genuine wealth inside a system designed to extract it, requires financial literacy and structural awareness. The institutions benefiting from your confusion have very little incentive to provide you with that literacy. Knowledge is the only asset they cannot manage for you. Is the one position in your portfolio that BlackRock cannot take a stake in. The one resource that Aladdin cannot price, short, or securitize. And that is precisely why this channel exists. If this deep dive into the hidden empire, into the men, the machines, and the mechanisms that own your life in 2026, open your eyes, hit the like button. And comment the words "the system" below to let us know you are paying attention. Because the WealthVault community is built on people who are paying attention. In our next investigation, we go inside alternative asset classes, physical gold reserves, private credit markets, rare collectibles, offshore trust structures used to hedge against the system. Subscribe to WealthVault. Turn on the notification bell. Because the next vault we open goes deeper into the financial architecture of concentrated wealth than anything this platform has seen. The vault is now open.